pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can all the council members hear me? And you're all, hopefully you have just muted yourselves so you're able to speak. Yes? Okay. All right. This is our meeting to consider appropriating funds that we set aside each year in our budget. The funds are intended to benefit community-based organizations that provide a benefit to our residents. Under state law, we are limited in that we cannot use the city's money to support organizations which do not bring a benefit to our citizens. And we have Susan Goodwin with us, who is going to keep us on a straight and narrow. Good evening, Susan. So normally we have an opportunity for each of the organizations to make a very short pitch for why they should be considered for funding, and to answer questions that the council may have concerning things like how many citizens really benefit from the programs that they are, that they're asking for funding. This year, because of being a virtual situation, we don't have an easy way to do that with for all of these participants. And we're not legally required to provide that time. So the decision was made that we were not going to provide it. Every organization was provided an opportunity to put together a short written statement in addition to the application materials that they had already given us, if they wanted to use that short written statement as a substitute for any type of comments that they could have made in the past to the council. No applicant made or submitted a written statement, so we do not have any additional information other than what's in the packet for consideration of these requests. We also have provided you with a couple of forms that I hope will help us keep this organized and allow us to go through it with some organization. Excuse me. The first is a memo from Tricia Kramer that talks about the procedure. Basically, this outlines the procedure that we followed in the past, and it highlights the fact that these funds would be only expended for public purposes, and they cannot be used for private or personal purposes. The other two documents in here in your packet, or that you were provided, I guess, separate from the packet, is a list of the 2020 applicants with a history over the last several years of whether they requested funding from the city, and if they did request it, how much they may have been given by past councils. And just to give you so you have some context for all of these requests, which obviously the requests, if you total up all the requests, they far exceed the amount of dollars that we have in our budget for this purpose. And that, just to make it clear, we have $17,500 in our budget to support this appropriations process, and the requests are almost $40,000. So they far exceed what we have in our budget to provide. Excuse me. The other sheet that was provided to you was a sheet that you can use to indicate what amount you want to put in for an appropriation for each organization. So from anywhere from 0 up to a number, you fill out your column on the recommendation sheet, And the only rule, hard rule, is that the total of all of the appropriations that you suggest in your column, the total of all those cannot exceed $17,500. And then what happens is the city manager will take this sheet he'll put together a sheet that has everyone's desires on the appropriations for each specific entity, and he will look for consensus in terms of an amount for the organization. In many cases, consensus is taking an arithmetic average of all of the individual council member votes. And that typically works fairly well, with the exception of a situation where one council member puts in a really, really large amount for one organization. So if somebody took $17,500 and put it in for one group, then obviously that throws off any type of arithmetic averaging that we might do. And so you can have one council member unduly influence the number that was chosen. And so that's why I say it's not always simply an arithmetic average. And the other thing that I typically ask the city manager to do is in doing these averages, not to get them down to the pennies and the dollar bills. So we don't want somebody getting $517.75. So in that case, it needs to be rounded to some reasonable whole number. So in that case, it might be $515. So the city manager will prepare all of that and present it to us at our next meeting, which is next week. And then at that point, anyone on the council is welcome to argue that that the numbers that we've come up with in this process, that those numbers are not reasonable and that it's an error, and you can lobby you can make motions to amend the recommendations that come out of the process, and that will be considered by council as a whole if it wants to make adjustments to what ends up being the result of the result of this process. So, does anyone on the council have any questions first from how this all is going to work and how you submit your number for each individual entity? Any questions at all?
I just have a statement, and I want to thank Tricia. I did actually have Tricia send me what I had submitted last year. That was very helpful for me. It's not everybody, not all the same people. We have 14 this year. I think we had 22 last year, but that was helpful. So I want to thank Tricia for that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the council before we start looking at the individual requests? All right. My intention is not to necessarily go through each of these in great detail, unless there's some question that somebody wants to ask or raise as we go through them. So we'll take them in order and see if there's anyone who wants to talk about a particular request.
Mr.
So
Mayor,
the first one is...
May I ask a question first?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Councilman Romack.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
I didn't see you waving, so.
I would like to just get a clarification on 17,500. Our income has improved, and I think that the services that are provided to our community by all of these groups would warrant us to look at that number possibly being as much as 20,000.
That it is a matter of changing our budget. This was the agreed upon budget for the appropriations area. There's obviously within our overall budget we have various contingencies. So if the council was of a mind to change the number to 20,000, we could, we just would have to move money out of a contingency into this line item or this category.
When would it be appropriate to make that motion?
Well, I don't know, we got our attorney here. Can we do it now, or is it a matter of waiting until it's on the actual agenda at the next meeting? City Attorney Goodwin. We can't hear you, so you need to put your unmute on. Okay, now you're good.
I think you could do it now if you wanted to. It's a special meeting and raise the maximum that you intended to appropriate.
Even though we've advertised it as information only. I mean, it's not. I guess it would. We could adjust the number, and then if the council decided it wanted to adjust the number for purposes of what we're doing tonight, we could take action on it at the meeting.
You're right. I didn't catch that. Yeah, there's no action contemplated tonight.
So, but we could end up going over if the council desires to do that, and then just take action on. What's that?
And you can discuss it. You'll probably know if you have a consensus or not.
Okay, so any other council person have a feeling on whether they would like to see us allocate more than 17,500 up to it sounds like a maximum suggested by Councilman Roback of 20,000.
I can remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
I struggle with. We're going through the budget process right now. We're possibly doing a hiring freeze. We haven't figured that out. We're going to do maybe no wage increases. We haven't figured that out. To dump more money into this before we give it to our employees, I would struggle with that.
Councilman Donahue.
I remember this coming up a couple meetings ago, and even or years ago, I guess, with even a higher amount. But I, like you, John, support it because it's actually just an additional $2,500. And I think this year we have less people asking, which is interesting. Maybe it was timing with the pandemic and et cetera, but I would support it.
Any other comments from other council members? Councilman Watson.
I'm falling in the same line as Vice Mayor Faith. I think that at this time we probably ought to keep the limit where it is, just because our financial situation is kind of, I mean, it's okay right now, but we have no idea what is yet to come with the rest of this pandemic. So I think it's best to leave it where it is.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Clare. Yeah, 1 second. Councilman Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually think along with lines with Paul as well. I'm all for being generous and helping out the outside as much as possible. And maybe we can revisit this at a later time if we want to do some additional funding. But I think right now we need to make sure that we've got our staff in place and that we're taking care of them first before we look to do additional beyond adding anything to the budget.
Okay. I will make just a short comment. I mean, of this list of organizations, a large number of them are ones that I've either been involved with or been had various relationships with over the years, and I can well stand, or I'm happy to vouch for the fact that they are organizations that have tremendous value to our community. I think this is not the proper time to make a change in this number, because we're going through and potentially having to make some difficult decisions on how we're going to impact the life of our staff through salaries and potentially hiring freezes and things like that. So this is not a good time to be making even a small increase in something that doesn't benefit those, our primary stakeholders in the staff, or directly benefit our residents. So I don't support changing it at this time. Any other comments? I know Councilman Romack, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, if I may. We talk about the coronavirus and the difficulties that we as a city are having. We've been blessed by having Fry's and all the other businesses around us doing well, although the Wigwam I will grant you is not, but I would say that all of these lending operations and food bank type operations are going through the same difficult time that we as a city are having. And so I would say that now is a really a good time to be generous instead of sitting on our hands.
Okay, any other comments from the council? If not, I would say that there's not a consensus to make a change, at least at this point. So my recommendation to each of you is to use 17,500 as a total in your column. And then to the extent that we want to discuss this further, certainly would be included in an action on the overall item that we'll be taking at our council meeting. So you can bring it up as an amendment at that point. All right, Councilman Romack?
Yeah, thank you for your indulgence, Tom. I appreciate it.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And in line with what John said, one of the things that we can do and what I intend to do is to look down through this list and see those entities that are probably doing more things that are essential to support people in need and shoving some of the money over there as opposed to, some of the money going to things that might be not really needs, but they're nice things to have, but they're not survival kind of items.
Okay, well, with that, let's go through and see if there are particular comments about the list of people. I do have a couple of comments on a couple of them, but I think it'd be best if we took them in order. So the first entity is a new leaf. Are there any comments from any of the council members on a new leaf?
Comment.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I'm kind of struggling with this one. They're telling us that we have a 9.3% poverty level below the poverty level in Litchfield Park. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe they're not serving the Litchfield Park zip code as opposed to the city, and some of their numbers may not be quite correct. Plus, I noticed in our staff report, they have $17 million in assets already. I'm not sure how they're spread out. We didn't get access to that, but they seem to be pretty flush.
Well, well taken comments. Is that your hand up, Councilman Donahue?
Yeah, I think, Paul, I can't find it in front of me, but I think this is Larry Servit, or I can't remember how you say his name. I think, remember last year? Yeah, last year. It's not him?
Councilman Donahue, it is not related to Larry Servit. A new leaf is not related to Larry Servit.
This Meals of Joy, or the new leaf is not?
Yeah. Meals of Joy.
New leaf is not. Yeah, Meals of Joy is,
okay, gotcha. Sorry, Meals of Joy. Because last year he came to us under a different name, but this year, I think, down the list. Yeah. All right.
He is affiliated with Meals of Joy and the Homeless Youth Association.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other comments from any other council member? I'm going to have to agree with the vice mayor on this one because I think they listed 96 people, and I'm sure that they're getting, their stats are more 85340 zip code as opposed to being within the city itself. No other questions or comments? Then we go on to Olive Free Food Bank. Obviously, Mr. Vice Mayor, this one I assume is high on your list.
This is one that I think, in line with what John was trying to do, that maybe we should think about maybe putting more of our budget toward them, because there are people in need right now, and they're really geared in on that. Having had some exposure to them in the past, I can tell you that they run a very lean organization and they benefit a lot of people. So, any other comments about the food bank?
All right. Mayor?
Councilor Romack. Yep.
We do a lot with the food bank through our church, and I'll tell you, you're right. They run a lean organization, and they help you. You don't know how many people that they help. I'm not sure that they even know, but it is a very worthwhile organization for our local community.
Any other comments from council? Okay, how about Blue Star Moms of the Southwest Valley? Any comments? All right, I think everybody knows Blue Star Moms, so we'll go on. The Catitude Gallery Studio. Comments from council about Catitude? All right. Next item is City of Avondale Senior Center, and this is one that I make a pitch for every year because we have seniors that live in Litchfield Park. In this case, their material this year says that there are 3 particular ones that live here who cannot afford to feed themselves and are, in many ways homebound. Our city is too small really to deal with trying to provide those kinds of services to our senior population. And so we've been fortunate in the City of Avondale Senior Center, which is a very organized and it's a good operation, and they do a great job in their community. They have been willing to take our seniors in and provide them transportation to senior activities and to feed them. And they do that, as literally out of their own city budget. Some of it is provided through federal funding, and I'm sure they get a variety of ways they fund it. But they come to us and they ask us to make at least a partial contribution to the cost of dealing with the services provided to our residents. So this is one that I feel very strongly that we have an obligation to fund, because they are citizens of Litchfield Park, and it does fall in line with, I think, the concept that the vice mayor brought up of making sure that we fund those organizations that are meeting some really basic needs of the residents in our area. So I would urge you to open your purse strings when it comes to the City of Avondale Senior Center. Any other comments from anyone? Ms. Claire, Councilman Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. I've the last couple of years with my Rotary group, we have gone over there and served holiday meals, and they do an amazing job. And they're serving hundreds of people. And I called you after the last meeting that I was at, and I just think this is a group that if we have the ability to support wholly, that we should.
Councilman Watson.
Do we have anyone from Avondale Senior Center on this call?
Even if we did, we can't ask them to speak because
do we have an idea of what their cost per meal is?
I think that's in your packet. In your packet, they give you a breakdown of how many meals they served and how much the value is. It was, 511 meals at $10 a piece or something. I'm not sure, but it's in the packet.
Piece.
No, I said this one has got in the Avondale presentation. They include the number of meals and the amount of transportation. It is in there, and the amount they spend exceeds what they have asked for in terms of support.
Right.
Mayor.
Do you have it, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to, support what you've said here. The City of Avondale, with the information we've seen over all the years, spends more money serving our citizens than we actually contribute usually on a year basis.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I think we have an obligation to them as a city, a sister city. And because of the joint stuff that we do together here and there and the common boundaries, we need to make sure we show some support for what they're doing. So we need to keep this one clearly on our list. And also what Ron was saying, the Rotary Club, we spend thousands of dollars over there every year, and it is money really well spent, very well spent.
Can I just add there?
Well, I got Councilman Romack had his hand up here just a second ago, and then I'll come back to you, Watson.
No, I found the price per meal. They're showing it on page 43 of $15.31 per meal, and plus transportation of whatever. So yeah, it's not inexpensive, but it is in their packet.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for finding that.
I support them totally. I don't have a problem with that. I had just gotten a clear cost per meal from Meals of Joy, and so I was trying to compare the two to see which organization, how they were operating in terms of cost per meal.
I'm going to guess Meals of Joy is probably a little bit less. That would be my guess.
Yeah, it's $10.
It's $10 instead of 11.
Yeah.
So, okay. Other comments or questions from council?
Just one more quick
All right.
thing.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
Tom.
Councilman Clare.
Just looking over their packet as well. I mean, they've delivered over 500 meals to three parties in Litchfield Park in the last year.
Right.
So at that rate, that's not even what they're asking for.
Any other comments? All right, we'll go on to Homeless Youth Connection. I think everybody probably knows the Homeless Youth Connection's story and how much they benefit, kids across the Southwest Valley, and kids that probably live, I think, that do live in Litchfield Park. All right, next one is the Litchfield PTSA. Comments? All right. Litchfield Park Historical Society.
I'll make
Yes,
it.
Councilman Watson.
I just wanted to say, I know that the Historical Society appreciates the support and that we support them in lots of ways, and that it does go unnoticed. I wanted to say that. I think it's one of those organizations that probably will be a hit to some of their funding sources, but I think that we're supporting them in lots of ways.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
This is one that's really not an absolute life and death essential situation, but it's something that the city supported and I've supported in the past strongly. And we do need to do something, I think, with this. We can't just drop them off the chart here. I'm not sure, I haven't thought through myself what that number is to me, but I think it needs to be something.
Any other comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Romack?
Thank you. The Historical Society, this is us. This is who we are. We own the property. We own pretty much everything that they're involved in. So it is not an outreach into the community necessarily, but it is supporting an operation that I think we all support. That's all.
Any other comments from the council? Okay. Litchfield Park Little League. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Well, thank you. I've always been a strong supporter of a Little League program. I'm not sure what the status is going to be this year of their program. Does anybody have any ideas of what the need actually would be for them this year?
I don't. I'm assuming that they're going to be able to have their season at some length, but they're going to have it's going to be a problem on how they deal with families and fans. So, I've not heard anything from them one way or the other in terms of how they're planning to deal with, the games on top of, social distancing. So I don't know.
The season would be going on right now. And I presume it's not going on right now, because usually it gets over with in the summertime. So I see Matthew shaking his head. Maybe he has some information.
Yeah, Matthew, have you heard anything about what's going on with Little League?
Yes, sir, Mayor and Vice Mayor. We've been talking with Little League back and forth for several months. As you might imagine, they keep delaying their season as they've had to for COVID-19. The last we heard, they were looking to delay their season until June. So we don't know a hard date yet. Of course, we just found out yesterday facilities are reopening, as you know. So we don't have a hard date yet, but I do expect them to play later this summer. Granted, it will be a hot season. But if they were playing, they still have been having tournaments anyway. So we are still in conjunction with them. Again, I don't have a hard date, but they were still planning on playing. They just kept on moving the season up, waiting for hard details.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, next one is Meals of Joy. Okay, no questions, no comments. New Life Center. Everybody probably pretty familiar with this one. How about Revell Foundation? All right, Southwest Lending Closet. I'm sure everybody knows this one.
I do want to speak about that. So needless to say, their situation with free equipment as people come to them, they have been open on a limited basis, but I think they've now added a bit of delivery. And in fact, I myself picked one up from somebody in Litchfield Park, brought it home, cleaned it off, and actually gave it to somebody else just because I saw that someone needed this, that. But I think especially with the pandemic, that equipment's expensive. And now they actually do have volunteers that are willing to deliver to people's homes. So this is one that I support. I think they have an awesome service and they run on a very, very, very small budget. So anyway.
Yeah, they do provide a tremendous service to our community, and they are lean and mean, no question about it. Any other comments from the council? Okay, last one is Southwest Valley Family YMCA, and this is I got a question first to Susan. Their application says that the money is going to be used for a program that does not benefit Litchfield Park at all. Does that take them out of the running in terms of even being considered?
It's always been my recommendation that the expenditure should benefit the city of Litchfield Park and its residents. So my recommendation is that you make your appropriations accordingly. Now, there are some organizations that, for example, maybe CASA and Phoenix, which indirectly benefits you, the city, by taking maybe the homeless people from Litchfield Park. I've heard that argument. But in general, if you can't find a tie or a benefit to the city, you should consider that they aren't eligible.
I don't know if the rest of the council looked in deeply enough to see what they want to use the funds for, but it's a good program. It's to teach young children, kindergarten, first graders maybe, how to swim. But it's going to be focused entirely on the Barbara Roby School, which, while it's in the Litchfield Elementary District, it is not in Litchfield Park, and the kids that go to that school are not from Litchfield Park. So these funds would be used entirely for the benefit of people out, that are just not residents or the children of residents. So I would be concerned about funding the program with appropriation dollars.
There may
Any other comments
as to whether the program even happens.
I'm sorry? And whether it happens at all?
Whether that program can even happen in our current situation.
Yeah, the pools are opening because, but there's still the issue of at the pool, how you deal with, with social distancing and, obviously a bunch of little kids running around, it's probably not going to happen, so. Any other questions or comments? Looks like Councilman Watson?
I would just add that, when you look at the fact that they're only serving 50 kids for 4 hours each, that's 200 contact hours. When you do the math, it's like $25 an hour. I feel like it's pretty expensive for what they're doing.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
But that's where you might add on some of that cost, but that is simply the swim coach and reading coaching.
It may very well not fit the criteria that we need to use this year. And particularly since it doesn't, it's not benefiting our residents or the children of our residents. Okay, any other comments from the council generally before we go off to fill out our forms?
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry? Oh, Councilman Romack.
Thank you. We have these forms and I have a bunch of pencil notes that I'll erase and write in, but you need to let us know how we want to deal with these forms.
Well, we need to get the forms to the city manager, and I think the request is to get them in no later than Thursday. So the sooner we get all the forms together, the sooner he can compile the information and see if he can come up with a recommendation that that seems to make sense. So I would ask you to fill them out.
How do you want us to get them to him?
I'm sorry?
Can we scan them and email them to him, or do you want us to drop them off, or what?
No, scan them and email is fine. There's no reason we don't need the original form. We just need your answer, your input. And so scanning and emailing is fine. You could even, I suppose, just write an email with the information we need and put it in the body of the email and send it. It's just get the information in whatever's the most convenient way. Get it to the city manager so he can compile it into his form.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, Councilman Watson, you just about had an adjournment.
Is this one of those forms we could fill in and just send the form back? Is it a fillable PDF, not PDF, Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, I don't think is it an Excel spreadsheet?
There's an Excel and a PDF that's fillable.
You already sent that? Or you will send it?
It was sent.
Okay, I'm being told that you were sent a PDF that is fillable and an Excel, or not an Excel?
Trish is there.
Trish, what did you send, do you know?
We sent a fillable PDF, so you should be able to type it right in there and email it back without issue.
And it'll be a separate email, Councilman Watson. They're attachments to a separate email.
It's the email I sent on Friday.
And it was sent to you on Friday, so it went to all council on Friday.
Yeah, I had it.
So
just last year it wasn't fillable, so I was wondering if change had been made.
Yeah, if you have any issues or questions, just let either Terry or Tricia know, and we can get you another copy. All right, any other questions? Going once, going twice. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you again for holding this special meeting. We'll get this wrapped up at our regular meeting on Wednesday.